So what we're going to do this time is we're going to build on something that we did in one of the previous sessions. We built a brand voice agent in the first session. If you haven't done that and you haven't gone through that process, there's a video on our blog in the latest blog article where you can follow along the building process for the brand voice agent, and then you can come back to this video, which will also be published. And what we're going to do today is we're going to take that brand voice agent and turn it into a researcher as well as a writer. So right now it's a really useful writer, and it writes in a really specific way. And the example that I'm going to use this week is Buzz Comewell. He's a fictional employee of Autohive. So let me share my whole screen and I'll get stuck in. Cool. That looks like it's sharing. So I've got this brand voice agent, Buzz Comewell's clone. So if you'd imagine that you've built this for yourself, you've built effectively a clone of the way that you write or the way that your brand writes. And right now, this is useful if I want to say to Buzz, help me draft a response to this email. And I might paste in the email and I'll get a response, or help me write a blog about building AI agents. So when I give it some direction, it's really good at writing. What we're going to do today is allow it to do its own research. So I'm going to enhance its system instructions using Queen Bee, which is our prompt engineer. And I'm going to allow it to do its own research. So then we will stipulate the source that it uses, and it can go to that source, find inspiration for content, and then write the content for us. So it just means it's a little bit more autonomous. One thing that I'll speak to before I start doing that is the concept of narrow AI. And what I'm doing here deliberately is broadening the scope of this agent. So to stick to the concept of narrow AI, you might, instead of giving both of these capabilities to the same agent, build a separate agent to do the research and provide the writing agent, in this case, Buzz Comewell's clone, as the tool to do the writing. So you can give one agent a tool of another agent in Autohive. So when the research agent is finished, it could call its Buzz Comewell's clone agent and say, hey, I've done all of this research. Here's a brief. Can you write it for me using your brand voice capability? So that would be a more narrow use case, and the likelihood then would be you get a better result in both cases. You'll get more effective research, and you can run that at a lower temperature if you want to make sure that its creativity is dialed to where you want it to be. And you'll probably get a more well-written piece of content from the brand voice agent. And again, because you might want to use different temperatures, it might make sense to use different agents. But what I'm going to demonstrate right now is just enhancing a relatively simple agent to have one extra capability. So I'll get stuck into that. I'm going to grab Buzz Comewell's system instructions. By going to the agent settings page. And I've got Queen Bee already inside my workspace. Queen Bee is our prompt engineering agent, and it helps us write better prompts and better system instructions. So if you need to find Queen Bee because you don't have it, you can just hit the plus, go to Browse Agents, and Queen Bee will be in this list in alphabetical order. I can't see it because it's already inside my workspace. So if you already have it, you won't see it. So now I'm going to use my voice to prompt Queen Bee to get us to improve these instructions. And before I do that, I'm just going to test that my speech to text tool is translating me in English, because sometimes it picks another language, and when it does that, I have to start again. So I'm just going to test this before we get started. Cool. Okay, that's a good start. Okay, here are some system instructions for a brand voice agent. And I would like to enhance its capabilities to allow it to also conduct research. So I will provide the single source website that I want it to conduct its research from. And it can go to that source and get only the latest published blog article. And it can then use the content of that blog article as inspiration to write a blog article for us to publish. So I would like you to help me enhance the system instructions to give this brand voice agent research capabilities too. So this tool will just hopefully transcribe everything into English and not a different language. And I'll paste in the instructions underneath. I did say that I would give it a source as well. So slightly circular use case here, but I will give it our blog. And then I'm going to use these triple backticks to wrap the instructions in. You don't need to worry too much about this. It's a habit that I'm in. And it should, so it puts it inside a code block so it looks nice and neat and tidy. And the LLM can then pass it nicely. Interesting. I wondered if that would happen. I was having this issue earlier on. Okay, so I'm going to use Queen Bee in a different tool for now because I had that issue earlier on. I'm just going to repeat that same prompt. Just bear with me. Okay, I need you to help me enhance this brand voice agent from just a writing agent into a research and writing agent. I will provide a source that it can use to get its inspiration, and it should get only the latest published article from the source and use that as inspiration to then write a blog post when prompted. So I need you to help me enhance the system instructions to turn the brand voice agent into a research and writing agent, please. Okay, so I'll just do this again. And I'll do the triple backticks for the instructions that I hope are still on my clipboard. Yeah, they are. Okay, so I've given it Buzz Cornwell's clones instructions. I've given it a prompt, so it might ask me some clarifying questions first. It might just start to rewrite the instructions to include the research capability. So it looks like it's using a web search tool in the same way Autohive would before it gets started. Cool. So it's going to write similar instructions with more detail in. It will stipulate the research source that it's allowed to use. And once it's finished writing, I will put those into a new agent in Autohive, and we'll take it for a test run and see if it goes to the source to get the inspiration. You can see the power of using a prompt engineer to write instructions when you watch it do this, because if you were going to write these instructions, you wouldn't go into this amount of detail. And in my experience, it's the stuff that you don't say in your prompt or your instructions that leads to outcomes that you don't want. It taking some creativity and doing stuff that you don't want it to do. So these are especially detailed. Potentially, we could make it pare these back a little bit, but let's see whether what we get out of it gives us what we want. And this is something just to keep in mind, I suppose, is more is not always better. It's usually better up to a point, and then you can start to see if it's hallucinating or doing things you don't want it to do, then it might be time to pare the instructions back. And that also depends on the complexity of the agent that you're using. So I'm going to create a new agent rather than editing Buzz Cornwell right now, because I'm going to come back to Buzz Cornwell shortly. So let's call this one research and writer. Right. I'll just speak this one. Uses the Autohive blog for inspiration and writes using the Buzz Cornwell brand voice. That's close enough. That'll do. So here are the new instructions that Queen Bee just wrote for us. I'll choose a model for this. I will go with, actually, I'm going to use 4.1 Opus, and I'll give it a bit of temperature. You don't need to worry too much about temperature. It is something worth playing with. And it's effectively a measure of, I think about it as a measure of creativity, or like a caffeine dial. it will change its responses, and it should be a fairly noticeable change. Sometimes you want creativity, like for a creative writer. Other times you want zero creativity, like for a data analyst. So using using different temperatures for different use cases is a good practice to get into. I don't need to give this one any extra capabilities yet. I'm not going to let it search the content folder because it doesn't need it, but I do need it to have full web search access. So we'll create that, and let's take it for a test run. Could you please check your source of inspo and write me a blog post? So sometimes prompts like this, where it's using a tool, sometimes take a little bit of back and forth. It might say, "Oh, I don't have a tool for that," even though it does. So it might be a case of going back to Queen Bee with the system instructions and saying, "Can you inform this agent that it has this tool?" So that's just something to keep in mind. It's not always black and white, that because you've given it a capability like the web search thing that it knows it's got it. They are pretty good, but sometimes you need to like specify that in the system instructions. So I think what's happening here, and I have seen this before with Opus, is it's not providing a query. So when you get a bug like this, and this happens, I'm not too worried about it. One of the first things I do is change the model and see whether changing the model will fix the situation, because these models, though they know they've got these tools, some are better than others at understanding the sort of the schema or the tool calls structure that it needs to use. So rather than letting this just run in an endless loop, I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to go to agent settings, and I'm going to go down to Sonnet 4 and see whether Sonnet 4 is better at using the tool. I'll get the same prompt. It's not a very long prompt. I could have just typed it again, but so let's see whether a different model does a better job of using the tool. Yeah, here we go. Look, so it's understood its tool far better, which is interesting because I was using 4.1, which is supposed to be more advanced than 4, but this one has done a better job of using its tool. So that's cool. I'm a little bit over time in terms of building, but what I would do next, and I'll demonstrate this super quickly now, is I'll demonstrate the difference between allowing this agent to do both of these jobs and using two separate agents and giving one a tool of the other. So this is pretty cool. It's writing in the correct brand voice. It's creating us an artifact with the blog post in it. You could give it a Gmail tool and ask it to send this to your email, or you could give it a Notion tool and ask it to create a new page in Notion. Couple of different ones. You could ask it to ping you in Slack when it's written a new blog article. So that's finished. That's cool. We could now copy this and publish it if we wanted. But I've got a research agent over here that I built previously, and so the new workflow is use the research agent to do the research, and then allow it to use a tool to do the writing. I'm going to change that to 4 because we just had success with 4. Let's set it to temperature 0.5. And this is the key part here. It's already enabled, but when you go to adding integrations, there's another sneaky tab for agents, and you can add an agent as a tool. So any agent that's inside your workspace will appear in this list. So this one has got Buzz Comwell's clone now. Again, it doesn't need to search the content folder, but there are reasons why you might want that, right? You might have a bunch of documents in there for, I don't know, sales or marketing strategies that would then help this agent to pull more relevant information. But I'll take that off for this. So now, hopefully, we should be able to say, oh, Okay, can you go to your source and get some inspo for a new blog article, please? Could you write out a detailed brief for that new article? And when you've written the brief, I'd like you to use your agent tool to call in Buzz Comwell's clone and have Buzz Comwell's clone write out the blog article in full, please. Okay, it doesn't need any more information, I don't think. And when I built this research agent, I think I was using the right name for Buzz Comwell's clone. So let's see if it remembers the name of the agent and the tool that it's supposed to call. So it's telling us that it found the latest article on the Autohive blog, which is building the brand voice agent, which is the one that I published last week, which actually has the video in for how to build the build that agent. So what it should do is go through these steps, and it should write a brief, and then we should see a tool call, and effectively another line like this that says something like use Buzz Comwell's clone. It's a bit slow. It's obviously doing a lot of research. Incidentally, that's also why when I was first editing the brand voice agent, I said just get the first most recent article. Otherwise, if you don't give it those parameters, it might go and scrape every article from a site that's got 10,000 pages. And at some stage, it may just stop responding because it's burned through its context window or something. So it's good practice to allow it or give it some parameters around how much it's allowed to do. Okay, so it's written the brief. We should hopefully get another call. Here we go. Yeah. Delegated blog article to Buzz Comwell's clone. So this is cool. Agent tool, Buzz Comwell's clone executed. So once Buzz Comwell's finished writing, we should get the blog article. I'm expecting it to be inside one of these drop-down finished tool calls. I don't think it will come back into the thread. So if you're doing this and you're thinking, where is it? You might have to expand the tool call after it's finished to find the actual content. So to briefly go back to temperature, and you might not be familiar with temperature, or you might not be messing with it yet. But there are reasons why a research agent might want a different temperature to a writing agent, which is why this narrow AI thing is something to always keep in mind. You want a high creativity for a writer once it's got the boundaries, for example, of the brief that the research agent just gave it. The research agent might run at a slightly lower level of temperature, lower creativity, so that it doesn't start jumping from the Autohive blog to the OpenAI blog to the agents.ai blog to get its information, because it's in its system instructions that it shouldn't be doing that. So here we go. There's the finished tool call. This is so cool. I love doing this. The tool call is now exactly the response that we got from Buzz Comwell's clone. So it's adding some extra information. We could train that out of Buzz Comwell by going back to Queen Bee and saying, I don't want it to say anything other than just outputting me the piece of content that it's been delegated to write. So that would just be a little bit of back and forth with a prompt engineer to tidy that up. But that's effectively it. So there was two different ways to achieve that. You can do it all with one agent, which often is okay. Or you can go really narrow and use two separate agents. So yeah, maybe give that a go. Start with your brand voice agent and then enhance its capability, let it do research and see how it writes. And if you don't like how it writes, then you could split them out again and build a research agent. And with that, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to either stick your hand up or put them in chat, and I will grab them.